am so excited to welcome everyone to the conversation. I remember I first learned about Robert McCallop when I was in third grade at Neiman Elementary School here in Shawnee. So it's very excited to get to meet members of his family and this opportunity for this discussion tonight. I found just well, actually the paper's long, but I'm only going to read a few sentences about, it's called All People Are Living Histories, which is why history matters, by Penelope Corfield. And I just thought it was really relevant to tonight. Historians are often asked, what is the use or relevance of studying history? The capital letters signaling the academic field of study. Why on earth does it matter what happened long ago? The answer is that history is inescapable. It studies the past and the legacies of the past in the present. Far from being a dead subject, it connects things through time and encourages its students to take a long view of such connections. All people are living histories. To take a few obvious examples, communities speak languages that are inherited from the past. They live in societies with complex cultures, traditions, and religions that have not been created on the spur of the moment. People use technologies that they themselves have not invented, and each individual is born with a personal variant of an inherited genetic template known as the genome, which has evolved during the entire lifespan of the human species. So understanding the linkages between the past and the present is absolutely basic for a good understanding of the condition of being human. That, in a nutshell, is why history matters. It's not just useful, it's essential. So you guys are very essential to us and the history of Mr. McCallop. So we're very, very excited. So I want to welcome the family of Mr. McCallop and have you guys introduce yourselves.
Okay, I am Harriet Taylor, and I am the youngest daughter of Robert Jr., who was the oldest son. RL was my grandpa.
McCallop McClellan. I am the great-granddaughter of RL. His son Alex is my grandpa, and this is my dad, who is Alex's son, and you can tell him your name.
My name is Edward McCallop. Everybody calls me Duddy. And I remember Grandpa well.
I am Theresa Taylor. I am the daughter of Charles and Charlene McCallop. And I am the granddaughter of Robert McCallop.
My name is Alexander Harrison McCallop III. I'm the grandson of Alex Sr., the great-grandson of R.L. McCallop.
Awesome. Is that everybody? Yep, I think we got everybody. Thank you so much. So a quick icebreaker from the Shawnee trivia game. See if you know the answers to these questions. So this is a level 5, so it's up there on being tough. Who started a bus company during segregation to transport African-American students to schools in Kansas City, Kansas? A, M.N. Bartleston, B, Carl King, or C, Robert McCallop?
C.
Robert McCallop.
Yeah.
Now this is a level 5, but I think this maybe should be a level 6. Who served as the first ever honorary parade marshal? A, Tony Adams, B, John Jensen, or C, Robert McCallop?
Robert McCallop.
Ralph.
And this is a level 6. Who is the local historian and patriarch of a prominent African-American Shawnee family? A, John Lutz, B, A.H. Jugemeyer, or C, Robert McCallop?
Robert McCallop.
So I think that is helpful in starting. That's just the tip of the iceberg of the history they're going to share with us tonight. I want to let you know that Julie will be monitoring the Q&A, and we will check in with her through the session. And Stephen and I will be asking some questions, but we really want this to be a conversation. And I know some of you guys have some photographs to share as well. So the first question, the McCallop family has a long history in Shawnee. So I'm going to ask Edward, can you tell us about it starting with Harrison McCallop, who was born into slavery, fought in the Civil War, and then moved the family to Kansas?
Okay, we can pick up when he moved to Kansas, and he had 14 kids. And RL was one of the youngest. And Robert McCallop left home and got married to Mary Jenkins, I think was her last name. And they moved to Shawnee. And that's where he raised his kids. He had 4 boys and 1 daughter. And in 1935, he started the R.L. McCallop bus service. The reason he started that is because black kids had to go to school in Wyandotte County, and they couldn't get there from Shawnee because it was because of integration. So in order for those kids to get to school, he started the bus company with a 1.5-ton pickup truck. And he hauled the kids there for a while until he got his first bus, which he bought from Sterling Auto in Argentina. And he hauled kids to Northeast, Junior, and Sumner High School from Shawnee and South Park, better known now as Merriam, Kansas. He also helped another guy start a bus company named Rucker in Rosedale, and he hauled kids to the same locations. He was a very respected guy. And as far as I know, when I grew up and I was in Shawnee, we were the only black family out there. I never saw anybody else black, but it just seemed like we just fit in. We didn't pay attention to segregation or anything when I was out there. Of course, Grandpa had me working most of the time. I was in the garden or doing something because he believed in a day's work for a meal. If you didn't work, you didn't eat. It's just that simple. So we grew up working with Grandpa. And I don't know, as far as the bus company goes, he started out with that 1 bus. We ended up, when we went out of business, we had 14 buses. And we were hauling kids from integration had come about then, and we were hauling kids from Lake Rivera up to St. Joseph's Catholic school in Shawnee. Other times we would haul most of the black churches and stuff in Kansas City, Kansas, and Missouri. We would haul to Swole Park on picnics and that kind of thing. And I drove the bus when I started driving the bus when I was 16. And I would always haul the cheerleaders to the games and stuff like that.
Wonder why.
Yeah. We won't go into all that.
Mama's in the background.
But Grandpa called my wife to kindergarten, and Grandpa didn't play. If you wasn't out there to be picked up when he pulled up, you was left, because he had too many other people to pick up to sit around and wait for somebody to put on their coat. So he didn't have to leave you but once, and you knew the next time to be out there. Yeah, so he was a stern guy, but at the same time, he was fair. He was very respected all over Shawnee. Well, everywhere they went, as far as I know. I remember one time he told me to take one of the buses over to OK Garage and fill it up with gas. And I got over there and I said, Grandpa said fill it up with gas. But he didn't give me any money to pay for it. He said, when the guy finished filling up his bus with gas, he said, tell him I'll see him later. And I just drove off. I mean, as far as I can remember, as far back as I can remember, I never heard Grandpa mention money about anything, about a gas bill, a light bill, or nothing. I never heard, as far as I know, as far as he was concerned, money didn't exist, except when we went and sold his produce. He was looking for that to come back to him. All in all, I think I was very well blessed to have been in the presence of Grandpa. He taught me a lot.
It sounds like it. That's such an awesome story, and thank you for sharing it with us. And I do want to come back to R.L. McCallop and all of his contributions, but I'd also like to go back to the Civil War period and ask the family what it means to you all to have an ancestor from your family serve in the Civil War, and has military service been part of the McCallop family throughout the generations?
I'll answer that question.
Go ahead, Cap.
For me, it means sacrifice. He was Harrison McCallop. He was willing to put his life on the line, and him joining the war. He made it home, and because he made it home, we're all here today. You know, I look at this picture here, and it makes me think, you know, he posed for this picture. His wife held this picture, possibly. His kids looked at this picture, and it's in my possession right now. So for me, it means everything to me. It means everything to me. I'm blessed as well.
Also showed, to me, it showed his concern for others and freedom that he cared about and opportunities that he was helping to make for his children, the Black children, and for everyone to come later on.
So then after the Civil War, when your family came to the Shawnee area, I think it was called Wilder back then, truck farming was a big part of the family history. So can you tell us about the time that your family were truck farmers?
I can tell you about Grandpa. He had farms all over Shawnee and Marion. And I remember when I was a little bitty guy, he plowed with horses and mules. He had two of them. One of them was named Charlie, and the other one was named Harry. And he said, I don't have to never worry about what time, when it comes time to eat. He said, because when it gets noon, those mules is going to quit plowing. And they're going to go to the barn, they're going to eat. Well, Grandma knew that also. So when come time to eat lunch, it was always on the table. As soon as we got through eating, back in the field. Then later on, he was able to get a couple of tractors and stuff, and he just plowed all over. He generally mostly raised for sale corn, and we used to get up at 5 o'clock and go out there and pick that corn, and we'd have that pickup truck looking like a loaf of bread. And then me and my brother Jim would ride over there with Mary Elizabeth. She was our oldest cousin at the time, and she drove. We had to get out and walk up and down the street and sell that corn. And 25 cents a dozen. 25 cents a dozen. Boy, I wish I could get a dozen of corn now for a quarter. Anyway, we did that, and I can never remember missing a meal. I might not have had always what I wanted to eat, but it was always something. Always something, and not just for me. It would be plenty left over for anybody else that come by. Because when they come by, the door was never locked. Come on in. How you doing? Sit down here. Mary, get him a plate. So that's the way it was, and that's the way I grew up, and that same thing was passed down to my dad, Alex. He never locked his door to somebody that needed help. I remember one time it was snowing real bad, and we could see 635 highway from our dining room window, and a car had slid off in a ditch. And Daddy was looking over and saw that, and he got in his truck and went over there. I had to go with him. Cold out there too, but anyway, we went over there, and he pulled those people out of the ditch and brought them back to his house and set them down and fed them and got them away to get where they needed to go. So that had been passed down from generation to generation. And right now, today, my door is never locked.
Okay, they got a lot of questions.
So anyway, I'll let somebody else talk. I can talk from now on.
I do want to share that my dad's youngest brother is on with his children. His name is Michael McCallop, and he was the fourth son of Alex. He's not on the panel, but he is tuned in with his wife, Susan, and their children who are all over the country, who are just wonderful contributors to society as well. And so we'll get to some of their accomplishments. But Michael did serve in the Navy from 74 to 78. And so did Cap's dad. He served in the Army. And so that, legacy of service continued with the armed services as well.
No,
Well, thank you guys all for your service.
Yes.
Uncle Charlie and Uncle Robert were both in the Army. Uncle Robert was in the Korean War.
Wow.
Harrison, him and his brother, they were in the Civil War. One went to North Carolina when Harrison came to Kansas. And while he was on the farm, at one point he lost an arm, and they said that he could outwork anybody with two arms. He could outwork them. And he passed away before RL, when RL was really young. But even without the presence of his dad, he still became a remarkable person, And on the farm where they were homestead, they built a home. I've heard that there were get-togethers there. Anybody was welcome there. They were one of the earliest founders in the town, and the school that RL went to, which used to be the Johnson County Museum. As a kid, it was amazing to me. At the time, where I really didn't understand. It was a yearly thing. The family reunion, we would go on these tours, and we would go to Old Town Shawnee. We would go to the Johnson County Museum. They didn't quite grasp what we were looking at. It was just, you know, something we did every year. And as I got older, I really began to appreciate it. And I mean, I think it's pretty amazing. You know, the school that my great grandfather attended. I mean, he would have no idea that that would be a museum, and then his dad would be on the wall in that museum. I think that's pretty amazing. That's a pretty amazing story, you know.
I see a lot of questions there,
I was just going to
Stephen.
say, let's check with Julie. And then
Yeah, we are getting quite a few. So we're getting them in a couple places. So I'll go ahead and run through them. Lisa is asking, how many of the McCallop descendants still live in Shawnee?
Question.
Shawnee itself.
Not a lot. I mean,
Well,
Maybe.
Billy,
No,
no.
his kid.
Well, where is
Oh,
everybody now?
Billy, doesn't your daughter still live in?
Yeah, his daughter lives there. Billy's daughter lives there.
So it's not very many.
Yeah.
And then we have somebody, you're in Overland Park, is that right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
And
I'm
then
in-
where's everybody else now? I'm just curious.
Kansas City, Missouri, Kansas City, Kansas,
Okay.
Wichita.
North Carolina.
You went to school there, Jessica.
well, you know, we have plenty of room in Shawnee if you want to come back. So welcome you with open arms.
Yes.
Awesome.
Okay. Next question we have on here from Alicia. Are there any photos of kids riding on the 10.5 truck to school? And is that the picture that I have? Let me share it here. You guys can tell me if we've got the right one or wrong one. Is that right here?
That's a
Or
picture
this-
of all the drivers
Just the
and
bus.
Okay.
the bus, and that is the guy on the far end up there is Mr. Thompson. He was the superintendent at that
Oh,
time.
okay.
The next guy is Mr. Lewis. And all
Okay.
the rest of the people were my uncles and my granddad and my aunts.
And your dad.
Yeah, and
He
yeah, my
was
dad.
first woman driver that there was.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. Okay. And then another question here from Alicia. Sounds like she's listening with her daughter. She said her daughters would like to know what kind of crops grew and where exactly the farm was located.
As I said, he had plots, a couple acres here and a couple acres there, all over Shawnee. There was about a block there by the house on 59th Street. He had some more up on 57th Street. He had more in Merriam, Kansas. It was just all over Shawnee.
And what kind of stuff grew?
He grew green beans and
Green
corn,
Potatoes.
mostly corn for sale.
Your daddy.
But he grew some of everything. Most everything we ate, as far as the vegetables concerned, he grew in the garden.
Some of us would ride on the back of the truck. And when we get to a house, we would hop off and go and sell the corn to the people. That was actually fun to us as kids.
Oh, that's so like deliver the corn to people's homes.
We'd stop by, yes. People go up to them to see if they wanted to buy corn. And so we had no problem selling it. Of course, we had to pick first.
Oh, that's interesting.
That continued on with my generation, with the riding on the back of the truck. That was a legacy. And so we would ride on the back of my grandpa Alex's truck, literally on the edge of the truck from Argentine to Kansas City, Missouri to 31st and Brooklyn to sell greens and vegetables and unbelievably, if you saw children today riding on the back of the truck, we were sitting on the edge. I mean, that would be so illegal today. But it was really, really, really fun. And so that happened with cousin Teresa and my dad and my generation as well. So it's just amazing how it just continued on down the line.
And I'm sorry,
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
with the gardens, I remember when Grandma used to send us out to the garden to pick strawberries and to pick green beans. We loved picking the strawberries because we always ate more than what went into the basket. But the green beans, we would also have to snap them, and we would go and sit on the porch to snap them. So sometimes when Grandma called, there was a hayloft in the barn behind the house, and we would just manage to get into the hayloft and hide and not hear Grandma, but she always found us.
Grandmas are good that way. Okay, and we have Councilmember Tammy Thomas has joined us, and she said, what area again of Shawnee, where did you live? She said, in the Zara area, she has a farmhouse from 1897 that belonged to a German immigrant named Jacob Kale, and I'm sorry if I'm not saying that right. They were farmers as well. The Kale family occupied that home until 1969.
Renner Road and Johnson Drive. That's where Harrison McCallop. That's where his property was.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Grandpa's
And-
property was 59th and Flint.
59th and Flint.
59th and Flint.
Wasn't it called Buchanan at first?
Yeah, 619.
619.
Buchanan Street.
Mhm.
And
I heard
then,
it.
oh, go ahead, Alex.
I heard a story of RL, and it just goes, to the time when they were alive. It's his sister, RL's sister. I don't know which one, but she fell off of a wagon, and he had to walk all the way to town, all the way to Shawnee, to get her help. And that was a normal task, I guess, walking, that distance right there. I don't know what time of year it was, but when things had to get done, they had to get done. And again, that's just another example of selflessness, I would say. So.
By the way, here, can you see it? Here's a picture of the mules.
Well, thank you everyone for sending in questions, and certainly keep them coming. We've got some more questions to ask the family, and hopefully we'll get some more good stories of the McCallops. So I know you've talked a lot about RL and the bus company and his story. Are there any other stories that you can share about RL, whether it be, what a day in the life of one of the bus drivers, driving the bus around, and where in Shawnee did the bus stop, or which schools did the bus go to?
Hey,
Where did the buses go?
along towards after they'd been in business probably 15 years or so, they started hauling kids into Argentina also, and that's where they picked up my wife and I and hauled us to Lincoln Grade School. It wasn't, integration hadn't came up yet. And Lincoln Grade School was a black school down on 24th and 24th Street, 24th and Strong, and they hauled us to that school also.
Now, what about when you drove and hauled?
When I drove, I didn't pick up anybody because I picked up people from the school, from Sumner. I picked up the team, I picked up the cheerleaders, and they were already at the school when I went to pick them up to take them to a game or something like that. Then, of course, we hauled, again, as I said, the churches, and most of the black churches in Kansas City, Kansas, to on their picnics and their outings and that kind of stuff.
So Edward, the other day when you mentioned that some of the drivers were 14 years old, that caught my interest. And as I was going through the trivia game, looking for the McCallop questions, I found that our ordinance at that time allowed for the bus drivers to be 14 years old. So 14, you think now, because my daughter just turned 15, a 14-year-old kid is driving a bus of kids.
Yeah.
To school.
Well, that really wasn't anything, because they had me on a tractor or something, or some kind of vehicle when I was probably 9. So I'd been driving for a while. But the first couple of times that I drove, my dad or somebody else rode with me to make sure I had knew all about what I was supposed to do. So after that, I can knock on wood, I never had an accident.
That's incredible. That's good.
That's why Daddy could be my big brother instead of, even though he was younger than I was. He was always sent to accompany me when I went someplace.
That's what she says. But if she wasn't going to the game, I couldn't go. She was just ahead of me in school. And if she wasn't going, I couldn't go. I had to stay home.
Mutually beneficial, right? So Robert met his wife, Mary, at the Primitive Baptist Church, and that is one of my favorite churches, and I'm so thankful it's still standing, 57th and Reeder. It is the oldest church in Shawnee. I believe, I have not confirmed, I believe it is the oldest church still standing in Johnson County. Can you tell us more about the church and how it fits into your family history?
Church, I used to have to go, and I didn't have a choice. If I was there on Sunday, you going to church. And they were known as the foot washing Baptist church. Mm-hmm. They believed in humbling themselves and washing each other's feet. And there wasn't any running water. There was a well out there, and they had a bucket of water sitting in the windowsill with a dipper. Everybody drank out of the same bucket, the same dipper. Of course, we wouldn't think about doing that now, but that's the way it was. And the outhouse is still there.
It's still there.
Mm-hmm. The outhouse is still there. I mean, it wasn't in, like I say, it wasn't in running water, so you know what you had to do.
Wow.
They have recently renovated it, so you'll be happy to know there is indoor plumbing now. But but the outhouse is still there if you prefer to.
Thanks.
I think not.
I join you, Dad.
We do have,
right, well,
I do want to mention real quick, we had mentioned earlier or asked the question earlier, how many still live in Shawnee? I do want to shout out my cousin Janice Berry. She is Harriet's sister who's on the panel. She is the oldest daughter of Robert L. McCallop Jr. And her daughters are on as well. Janice lives in Shawnee, as well as Latoya lives in Shawnee, to answer that question earlier, as well as Billy's daughter. So there's at least 3 of us still in Shawnee.
Awesome.
That's great. Well, the R.L. McCallop Bus Company is such a great entrepreneurial story. And, can you tell us more about, you've told us how the bus prospered and what the company did. Can you tell us more about kind of how the company evolved and what became of it?
We just kept growing over the years, buying more buses, and they weren't ever, they didn't ever sit still. They always had someplace to go. We to hauling school kids or churches or something. We hauled the Church of the Nazarene on 18th Street over in Wyandotte County. Hauled them to all their functions. And it built up to 14 buses, as I said. And after integration, there was no need for the McCallop bus service to haul kids to Sumner High School and Northeast Junior High School. I myself and Teresa went to Argentine High School, I think the first year of integration. I went to second. So I didn't ever have to ride across town to Teresa and I lived in Argentine, and we went to Argentine High School. So after integration, there was no need to have the McCallop bus service haul kids out of Shawnee and Merriam. And that's when we started hauling kids from Lake Revere back into Shawnee. So after we didn't have a whole lot of business, we just started to sold the buses off.
So have you kept up with any of the kids or the families that rode the bus?
Yes, I know a bunch of them, man. I see some of them, from different times.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah.
I think
Well, it's
someone
obvious-
made a chat. Someone in the chat said that they rode the bus. I think I saw something like that.
Oh,
I had a high school teacher. She rode the bus. And a couple old timers that I know around the town, when they recognize
What's
my
that
name.
old timer stuff, man?
older
I'm one
than me,
of those old timers.
older than me. But yeah, they would always say, "Hey, yo, I know your family, or I know where your farm was, and tell me a history lesson." So yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Well, it's obvious that schooling and education have played a really prominent factor in your family history. And I know Robert and others bused children to school, and William and Ruth were both professional educators. Are there other ways that education has played a role in your family? I know several of you on the call today are also educators or have a background in education. So could you talk a little bit more about how education has shaped the family and how that legacy of education still lives on?
I'll answer that. I'm the great granddaughter of RL, and I am the founder of a nonprofit 501c3 organization called Giving Hope and Help. And we have 3 arms of outreach, but I'll share the one that pertains to education. And we have a Education is Your Passport program, as well as an Education is Your Passport scholarship program. And the scholarship program serves underserved high school seniors, as well as single parents with college scholarships. We established the program in 2015. And as of 2020, we have awarded 72 scholarships and 4 full ride scholarships. And we also give a scholarship in my grandparents, Alex Sr. and Cleo McCallop's name. And that scholarship is the Legacy of Giving Scholarship Award. And it's a cash scholarship for students. And it is paramount because it's just in my DNA. And so I had to honor my grandparents as well as my maternal grandmother with scholarships in their name. And I know there's many of my cousins. I believe I'm the first great granddaughter to graduate from college. And then there's many behind me. Now Harriet is a granddaughter, so she's graduated, so I'm under her. And so Harriet, I'll let you tell a little bit about you and your education initiatives.
Okay. I also wanted to say that my niece, Latasha Berry, is a grade school teacher who is the daughter of Janice, and that's my oldest sister. And our dad was Robert Jr. I am a retired educator. I had an opportunity of my husband being in the military. We traveled around quite a bit. So I had the opportunity to work for a number of higher ed institutions. Education has always been important to myself and to my husband. And my dad always wanted us to get a good education. Moving back full circle and being in the military, my husband was in for 29 years. We had the opportunity to come back home to Kansas. And we been blessed with owning a Chick-Fil-a, which is in Overland Park, Kansas. And part of our initiative of giving back to the community was organizing a teacher appreciation banquet along with the Shawnee Mission School District. And we did that from years 2009 to 2018. And we would provide dinner for the teachers. The winners were all provided to us from the district. We would give them free Chick-fil-A entrees for a year, and also a number of gifts and door prizes that were donated from the business community that surrounded our store. So it's ingrained in us to give back, and we have ingrained a good work ethic. And so education is just a part of it.
I have cousins pinging my phone saying, I am this, I am that. It's so many of us. My cousin Mike's daughter, my dad's youngest brother, his daughter Michelle has a doctorate degree. He has another daughter, Melissa, that has a law degree. Angela, Teresa's daughter, has been in early childhood education for over the last 25 years. Many of my cousins have graduated with the bachelor's, I with a bachelor's, master's, and doctorate. Wow, for so many to have done that from a family that has come from slavery to school buses to scholarships and service.
And adding to that, I have been a teacher and an administrator. Mentioning my daughter, our son, one of our sons is a physician, and he's working a lot with those who are having the COVID-19 now. And we've been to foreign countries and helped to teach in those areas as part-time missionaries. Our children, one of our daughters has graduated from Loma Linda University, and she's working in the field of epidemiology. So she's in an area where she can do research and help at this time. But we also have a lot of our family, children and grandchildren that have profited from the education that they have been able to receive and have been able to help other people with the education that they have received. And those who have gone over, myself, my husband, our son and his wife, who've gone over into the mission fields, have done volunteer work and helping to build buildings and helping to teach the children. So education has meant a lot in our family. And even those who haven't graduated from college, they still have gone to college, and they are using the talents that God has given to them in order to advance their own families in order to help other people. So we're very thankful that our families and grandpa and grandma were there to encourage us to get our education, starting off even with the bus service.
A legacy that I am sure they'd be so proud. I'm going to check in with Julie for questions, but first I noticed there was a few here in the comments. One question is, which McCallop built the brick house on Goddard a few blocks behind the Methodist church? And do you know around what year it was?
It was built in the 70s.
Isn't that Uncle Bill?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was built in the 70s.
Okay.
Thank you. Do you know what is now on the land that your family farmed?
Well, a lot of it has houses on it now. A lot of those properties have houses on them.
What's that school there?
There's on where Harrison's farm is, there's I believe that's where that church is. There's an article from that was passed down to me where the house was still there. And then the owner that had it, it said they were making room for a commercial development, but I believe that's where the church is there in Renner and Johnson Drive.
This question is, what was the biggest challenge that the family faced for the white establishment? There were no challenges from your perspective. To what do you contribute the lack of conflict?
I think basically it was the way my grandfather was. He didn't meet any strangers, and if you needed help, he was there to help you. So I think basically that's the lack of conflict. Then too, my dad and his older brother went to a one-room schoolhouse, and it was integrated. So
Okay.
that's all I can see, because like I say, I never saw any other black families out there until later in life, and all while I was growing up and stuff, there just wasn't any out there. Of course,
The families that were members of the Primitive Baptist Church, did they come from outside Shawnee?
yeah, mostly from South Park and Miriam.
Ah,
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Yeah.
Someone commented the stone bus barn still stands across the street from our sister city park, our Roly Boly Park. So if anybody wants to drive by and see that.
Yes, it does. It's still standing. The old house, Grandpa's house, Uncle Bill had it torn down and built a new house there on that same property. So it's a new house there at this time. But it's right beside the barn is right behind it.
That would be this picture here.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's my dad. You can't see him, but he's sitting on the horse, and his cousin, Mary Elizabeth. Grandma Mary.
Can you hold it up just a little bit, Alex? There you go. Oh yeah. Okay, cool.
Lots of memories. My great grandpa R.L. passed away in 1981. So I was old enough to remember him and spent a lot of time with him growing up. I went to Flint Elementary School as a kindergartner. And at 5 years old, my parents, believe it or not, let me walk to school by myself. Actually, I walked with my older sisters, but I got out before they did. And so I can remember getting out of school and walking across the street to my great grandpa's house, and he would babysit me after school, after kindergarten every day. And so he didn't pass away till I was about in 7th grade, I believe. And so I had spent a lot of time with him. And I know Harriet probably has a lot more memories because, again, I'm the great, and she's her and Teresa and my dad, they're just the grandchildren. So I'm sure they have a lot of memories, but I thought it would be nice to share that my great grandfather would babysit me. And now my parents are great grandparents and great great grandparents, and they babysit their great and great great children.
Vicious circle.
Yeah. So then that means he passed away 2 years before I learned about him, because it was 83 in 3rd grade at Neiman Elementary when I learned about your great grandpa. So I wish I had met him. Especially the more I learn. I'm going to go to Julie for any questions that she has.
Yeah, I wanted to just read off a couple. They're not necessarily questions, but just some really cool stories. Mary wrote in, I rode the McCallop bus when I was in St. Joseph grade school during the mid-1950s. Robert always gave every student a Christmas time chocolate candy bar. My daughter had a classmate at Flint grade school. She was also in my brownie troop. Can't remember her name. She would be about 55 or 56 years old. If anybody knows her name. Let me see. And then there's just a lot of these stories. I'm not sure that we're going to be able to get to all of them, but this is incredible. Michelle Parks wrote in, I met a man who rode the bus, and he was about 85 when he told me the story of my grandmother always making sure he had breakfast on the bus on the way to school. That's awesome.
Michelle is her granddaughter. Julie.
Okay.
Michelle is Alex's granddaughter.
Oh, okay. We need a flow chart for you guys. Okay, cool. A lot of people just saying thank you so much for sharing these stories. I would repeat that. I mean, it's just this is really incredible. Joan wrote in just a comment. I was about 8 to 10 years old, and Mr. McCallop helped my aunt with her house. I was so impressed by him. He was so gentle and kind to me. That sure seems to be the main message coming through in all this. Let me see another one here from Mary. For generations, your family has fought against systemic racism. What can we learn from your ancestors as we continue to work for social justice?
Harriet, you want to answer that? Do you want to answer that?
I think, our family made a difference. We were the type of family that always wanted to help out and make people aware of differences, but always treat people with kindness. And one thing, I always say back in the day, old school, what they used to have is just a handshake and your word. And when you said something, that it meant something. If you said you were going to be somewhere, you'd be there. If you said you were going to do something, you got there and you did it. And I think if just everyone would just spread a little kindness, would go a long way.
And one of the questions was, where is the Chick-fil-A located? That would be at 97th and Quivira. So
yes.
Like me, you don't have to feel guilty of spending your taxpayer dollars outside of the city of Shawnee, as long as it's going to a McCallop family member. So that still counts. Did you have any more, Julie?
Oh,
I have a text
Sorry.
from Janice. I'm sorry. I have to
please
share
go
this.
ahead.
I have a text from Janice McCallop. This is Robert L. Jr.'s oldest daughter, Harriet's sister. She says that when she was growing up, her dad, Robert Lee McCallop Jr., always had them go to the garden to collect vegetables for dinner. When she learned to drive, her dad would take her to Holiday, Kansas, and she also used to ride the bus with her father sometimes as he drove.
I was thinking about what Harriet had said, and it just brought to my mind that the whole time that I was growing up with Grandma and Grandpa, I never once heard them say an angry word or be angry with anyone. And grandma was just always so gentle. And that passed along, with them in their giving to others and doing things for others. It is something that I will always remember about them.
Yeah, it certainly seems like we can learn a lot from you all and from your relatives for sure. I do have a couple more questions I want to get to really quickly, if you don't mind. They're really great questions. So Alicia wrote in, I'm curious if you all have any knowledge of the integration history locally here. She's specifically kind of wanting to know about the integration years and what that meant for Black students, kind of what their experience was like. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, I can, let's see, I'm a product of the Shawnee Mission School District. I attended Flint Elementary, then Shawnee Grade. I have to say that maybe my experiences growing up wasn't as positive as when I came along. I can remember we grew up, my sister Janice, Robert, and I, on our address was 5931 Barton. We had to walk to school, which maybe would have been about maybe half a mile. But my experience was, back then, I was called names, walking to school. I was spit on out of the school buses from the other children. And once I got to school, I would tell administration about the problems that I experienced. And I can vividly remember, I was always told that you have to be a better person and ignore, all the negativity. But after a while, it wears on you. But thank God, I had a good family foundation and foundation with Jesus Christ. And so I think I, worked through some things. But there was, everything in my generation when I came along, I did experience some of the bad stuff. I can remember the movie theater on Johnson Drive. I can't think of the name of it now, but we were able to go, but being Black, we had to sit up go through the back door and sit up in the balcony. And I can also remember when I was a campfire girl, a letter was sent home to my mom that I wasn't allowed to go to the Shawnee pool because of the color of my skin. So there are some things that that I experienced and had to work through. So.
Thank you for answering that, Harriet. Did anybody else have anything to add to that, or would you guys like me to move to the next question?
I just would like to add that I fight for social justice through my nonprofit and in my personal life as well. And one of the reasons that I do it is because of the fight that my ancestors endured and won. So how dare not I stand up for what my grandfather and great grandpa, have gone through. And so I always say that I am their wildest dreams, because I've accomplished, and we have accomplished, all of us on this Zoom, and the ones that are pinging my phone. I'm trying to get all my cousins 2 cents in. I love you all. But we have accomplished so much because of the fight. And it's in our DNA. It's, like some families sing, we we get through it all, and we succeed, and we have a gift of giving to others. And I think that is just in our DNA. That's the story of the legacy of the McCallop family.
Mm-hmm.
I know I went to Argentine High School the second year of integration. And I didn't have too many problems. I never had a fight going through school. I became senior leader as a sophomore in gym and stuff like that. So I guess I was kind of a jock a little bit, I guess. And all the kids kind of liked me anyway. So I didn't have a whole lot of problems going in. My wife is behind me. She kept saying the girls. I don't know what she's talking about.
Probably popular because of that basketball cheerleaders.
We've been married for 58 years. 58 years we've been married. I'm not going anywhere.
I remember I went to Argentine high school too, the first year that they were integrated. And there were some very nice teachers there. The students we had no problems with. I did have a couple of teachers that I had experiences with. One, I would be sitting in class. It was an algebra class. And he would be teaching and would ask if there were any questions, and I would raise my hand. And it was just like I wasn't even sitting there. And I had a terrible time. I had done excellent work in math until I got there, and they skipped me from the math class to the algebra class. So I didn't have my last year of math as a background. And I did really, really bad that year because my Uncle Alec tried to help me, but they were doing algebra in a different way from me. So that was a terrible experience that I had that year. And I had another teacher who was just lambasting me all of the time. But thankfully, I had one of my teachers who had just graduated from college. This was her first year. And she encouraged me, and she helped me to get on to like the editorial staff at school. And that boosted my spirits. But basically, as far as the students were concerned, we had no problems at all. And there were a few other Black students who were there. It was just with some of these older teachers who had been there for a while.
And then, of course, we have the question, when are you all putting out a book? But like they're serious. We really want to know
the answer.
We really want to know.
Works. I'll tell you, it's in the works. I do have to shout out Leroy. Leroy Carlisle is pinging. He and his brother and sisters grew up right across the street. They're the grandchildren, great grandchildren of RL. They are on. They're not on the panel, but they are on. I'm shouting you out, cousins. Love you very much. Leroy, Walter, Tanya.
Debbie.
I can't think of the Debbie. I can't think of the rest of it. They're all here and watching. Some of them are watching. And so Leroy said that he fought almost every day to defend his family's honor. And Mary Elizabeth was RL's granddaughter.
That was their mother.
That was Leroy's mother. And they lived right across the street from Grandpa RL. And so I spent a lot of time over there as well growing up because we lived up the street. They lived down the street and Grandpa lived across the street. So it was just all of us right there.
Who's on the mural there with RL in the Shawnee Mission Courthouse?
Clifton,
okay.
And then you guys are obviously also close, and I know that you have a lot of family members who are texting and chatting in. We did have a question earlier, which I thought was interesting. And how do you keep your family's history alive between you all? And how do you keep those stories going and passed down through your generations? And then somebody was also asking, pre-COVID, what were holidays like? Do you guys all get together? Do you have like some favorite family meals that have been passed down? So people are wanting to know how you're such a tight-knit family and how you really keep that alive, because it's very obvious.
every New Year's Day for years, I don't know how many it was, we would go to Uncle Bill's house, that house on Goddard.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a big full basement, and man, and we it was like potluck. Everybody brought something, and we always had an abundance of food, and that was every New Year's Day. Now since he's passed, we meet at my brother's son's home, Patrick. He lives out in
Piper.
Kansas, and we meet at his house. Except for this year, on account of COVID-19, we didn't meet. But this is the first year that we missed, and not only R.L. McCallop, but some of his brothers' kids come there also. So it's a mingling of the cousins and everybody that comes. We just, and not just McCallops. I mean, we have friends of the family that come also, and everybody's welcome. Everybody's welcome, and you get some good old home cooking. I'm telling you.
Wow.
That's just one instance. We used to have family reunions every year.
Mm-hmm.
We had meetings set up to plan this the entire year. Once a month, we met. I was the president for a while. I don't know how I got to be president, but anyway, but I was. And we met every month and discussed what we was going to do for that upcoming year. And we had a treasure and stuff, and we saved money to rent a park or whatever.
Now Sundays, because Sundays continue. I don't know if you said this about your mother's house, but every Sunday, Melissa, I see you. Maria, I see you. Latoya, I see you. Every Sunday we would eat dinner at my grandma Peachy's house. I was double blessed because my grandmother on my dad's side and my grandmother on my mother's side were very good friends. And they lived right across the hill from each other. So on Sundays, I would get to go to my grandma Peachy McCallop's house and eat. And then I would get to go to my grandma Spearman's house and eat, which was right over the hill. And so it was just something that we did every Sunday. The family came, you could bring people, and it was always enough food. And to this day, my parents have enough food to feed the block. It is just in our DNA. They're always giving out food and calling neighbors if they need any food. And so the people on my parents' street where I grew up, they know that they can go to the McCallop's house and get something that they need.
So we would love to invite you to have your next McCallop reunion at Shawnee Town, 1929. We would love to have you guys there. So let us know when you want to do that and we will get it scheduled. I think that would be awesome to have you all back in Shawnee and right there, right in your old neighborhood. So I think that would be so great. So want to formally invite you to do that. And then I want to ask if there's any other customs or traditions or favorite foods that continue from Harrison or Robert that you still enjoy today?
Yes.
Greens.
Greens. And Grandma used to make the best black-eyed peas. I'm telling you the truth. She really did. Grandma Mary.
One of my cousins said macaroni and cheese. Greens was my favorite. I mean, that's greens.
I think I told a story about when we went hunting. Grandpa used to love to go hunting with us. My uncles and my brother and I, we would all go hunting with Grandpa, and he would come and everybody would have a lunch bucket with coffee and a sandwich, you know. Grandpa had two. He had one, he had his thermos in there and a sandwich. And the other lunchbox was full of gingerbread. Man, I haven't had any good gingerbread since Grandma passed. Boy, I'm telling you the truth, it was just, that was a treat in itself. Not just having the fun hunting and stuff, but the gingerbread. We look forward to gingerbread when Grandpa didn't go. Well, can we go by Grandma's house and get his lunch bucket?
That's funny.
Yeah.
So do you still have those recipes?
I never had the recipe. She took that with her when she left.
Oh.
Yeah, she did.
Shoot, there wasn't no recipe.
What'd you say, Billy?
She just knew, I
Probably
guess.
wasn't.
A pinch
You
of
probably
this, a
just knew
pinch
how
of
to
that.
do that off the top of her head.
How often do you share the McCallop story?
As Cap's daddy, every day.
Well, I tell my kids about it every single day. I show them pictures, all the pictures I've been pulling out, and all the pictures that other members have been texting me. I show them to my kids every single day. And I think that's important to do, so they always know the examples that they have, you know. So, and sometimes my kids are pretty young, so their story changes. I mean, you know, their great grandfather flew airplanes or had a train, or, you know, but they'll share with their teachers on Zoom school and all of that. So they're proud of it too at 7 and 5 years old. So every single day for me.
Melissa said that we live the legacy every day. Melissa McCallop, they're asking me to speak for them, and so I dare not. Yeah, I was seeing the chat, and I don't see the chat anymore, but there were pound cake. Pound cake was one of our favorites. Wow.
Homemade biscuits.
Yes, homemade biscuits.
Chicken and dumplings.
Chicken and dumplings. My grandfather, he scarred me to this day. I will not eat anything that looks like or resembles a rodent.
Wow.
They would hunt squirrels and rabbits, and I would see my grandfather clean them and split it down, and oh my God, that bruised me. I will not eat anything that I will not eat anything that look. I felt so bad for the squirrels, and I felt bad for the worms when they went fishing all the time. I felt bad that they would kill the worms and put them on the hook. But those are some of the things that I can remember, and them smelling like the animals when they come from hunting.
Didn't it smell good?
Well, it's not something that is continued now, but it's something that I will never forget. And that's Grandma taking the milk and churning it until all of the cream came to the top, the milk that they had gotten from the cows, all of the cream came to the top. And that was one of the favorite things that I had that Grandma had made.
I remember that also, Teresa. And I hated that churning with that thing up and down, up and down, up and down. Looked like it wasn't going to ever get through. But then it was good butter.
It was.
And then we made buttermilk after that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, it was good. And matter of fact, I have a churn sitting on my kitchen floor right now that you could make if you get real milk.
Well, all that churning is what made you the accomplished athlete that you were.
Hey,
Can you
Uncle
believe
Duddy,
he?
you want to tell
Can
him
you
about
believe he was a
building
skinny
homes?
little thing?
What were you saying, Alex?
I was just asking my uncle if he wanted to share, or if anyone wanted to share. I mean, our grandparents, his parents, and all their siblings, they built their own homes. I wasn't there. Maybe Uncle Duddy may have been there or I know my
Uncle
dad
Bill.
was.
Uncle Bill built his own home.
Uncle Robert.
built his
Had to
own
be.
home.
Yeah.
Elizabeth and her husband built their own home.
Mhm.
My dad bought his own home, but and the way that he done it is so important. He would go to work on his job and he would get paid and would go buy whatever materials he could afford. That next week, he would install those materials. The next week, done the same thing. So later on, when we was looking to maybe get a loan on the house or something, my dad was dead then. He didn't believe in that. We couldn't get one because there wasn't a deed to the house, because there was never a deed. It was never any money owed on the house. When he got through building it, he didn't owe a dime.
Wow.
And it was a 3-bedroom home with a full basement. And he hauled the rock in there. Of course, now he and his brothers did this. He didn't do it by himself. He had to haul the rock in there from Holiday, Kansas to Argentina with a team of mules.
Wow.
So all my uncles and stuff built their own home.
That is just, I'm just amazed.
He had other homes built, but this is them building.
We can't hear you, Billy. Can you talk louder?
No, my wife was asking me how many homes did my father build, and I said, well, he built one, but he had the other ones built.
Yeah.
The house that he built was 1111 West 57 Terrace. That was right there by Vitacraft.
Yeah.
That was right down the street from Grandpa. So we lived there at 1111 West 57 Terrace, and I would walk down the street to Flint School. And as cousin Jessica said, after I leave Flint School, I go to Grandpa's house, and that's where I had my lunch, and they would watch me, my grandfather. And at that time, he was married to my auntie on my mother's side. I didn't get to meet Grandma because she passed when I was very young. So they would watch me all through, I guess, till I went to Hocker Grove, because I went to Flint School and I went to Old Shawnee Mission School, where now is a swimming pool there. I think it's named after the past mayor, Allen.
Mhm.
And the Allen family lived right across the street from us on 1111 West 57 Terrace.
Yep. As we close out on, the legacy that you guys live and that you're sharing with your children and stuff, if there's any other things you want to share or antidotes or anything like that, I think the people would enjoy hearing the story you told Stephen and I the other night about Garrett's and about the blessings that you continue to do at your dinners that have carried down to the family. So if you want to close out with those couple of stories and anything else you can think of that you think people would love to know about your family.
I can remember,
Go ahead, Teresa.
when my very first long train ride was with Grandma and Grandpa, and Mary Elizabeth and her mother were there with us. We were going to California, and I was so excited because we had a little room and I could eat dinner on the train. And for a young girl, that was something, without her parents, that was something very exciting to me. And we went to San Bernardino and we went to Los Angeles, and that was my first trip to Disneyland. And we went out to a fabulous restaurant that was like you were in Hawaii, and the waterfalls were there coming down. And it's just something, it was a trip that I will never forget.
Well, you asked about the Bible scriptures, and my grandpa Alec, who was RL's son, and his wife Cleo, when we would have Sunday dinner, before we ate, we would say the grace, and my grandmother would say the verse from Proverbs 3:5-6, and all thy ways let us acknowledge him, and he shall direct our path. So she would say it, and we would have to say it after her. And that legacy continues to live with my parents and their children today. Before and grandchildren, before we eat, we say the grace, and then we say that scripture. I think that's what you were asking, Michelle.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. I love that story, and the story about going over to Garrett's grocery, and wasn't it pantyhose and something, or pantyhose and ice cream? Didn't she used to cut the ice cream?
Oh,
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
Grandma. When I used to have to go, when we used to have to go to the store, we would go to Garrett's, us kids and stuff. We would walk to Garrett's down on Neiman Road.
Yes.
Grandma went to the store every day, and she went to Mueller's up on Neiman Road. Yeah, she went to Mueller's, and she'd go there, and she'd come back, and she would have she'd get a half gallon of ice cream every day, and she'd always have knee-high pop. I don't know if you guys know what knee-high pop was, but that was the best.
My grandpa was a driver for Knee High.
Oh, okay. And then she'd come home, and she was just so quiet, and she moved so slow. I mean, she was just, oh man, looked like she wasn't, and she cut it with a knife because it was square. And she just opened that up and laid it on the table, and she cut it with a knife, and she gave you a big slice of that, you know. And so one day, my older brother Alex was standing there waiting on his ice cream. His mouth was just watering. And she said, she talked real slow too. She said, "Son, you want some ice cream?" He said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "Well, you got 2 peas in there on the stove. You got to go eat those first." Grandma and Grandpa did not believe in wasting food. You did not waste any food. So he ran in there and ate his 2 peas, and he came back and got his ice cream.
Wow.
Yeah.
One of my other cousins mentioned Grandpa Alec, his scripture.
I look into the hills which cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord. 121st Psalm.
So he would always say that as well.
And by the way, that's my favorite also.
Yeah. So if you don't have anything else, I'm going to ask Harriet to read a quote. Oh, wait, I guess I should check with Julie. Julie, were there any more questions that came in?
Well, there's a whole lot of kind of comments. Again, just a lot of people really thanking you. A lot of people looking forward to this book that just now has to be a thing. And just a lot of comments. So if you all get a chance to kind of look through there as well, just a lot of personal stories and anecdotes in there that are pretty interesting. But really, everybody's just so thankful to you all for your time and for joining us and sharing the story. It's truly incredible. So thank you from me too.
Is there a way for us to copy all those, Julie, and paste them into a document or something?
Yeah, I think that we can.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so now I will ask Harriet to read a quote.
Okay. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "For one must know where one has been in order to understand where one is going. For we must teach our children that the rejection of heritage means the loss of cultural roots, and that a people who have no past shall have no future. The legacy of the McCallops lives on."
That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Amen.
I want to thank all of you. The contributions your family have made in Shawnee and the whole entire region and continue to make across the globe is just truly inspiring. And I just want to say thank you. as I read a proclamation in honor of your family. I'm going to read the version with the bigger text. From the office of the mayor in recognition of McCallop Day. Thank you, Stephen. McCallop Family Day. Whereas the McCallop family has a long legacy of fighting for freedom, equality, and education, and a determination to give back to the community. And whereas these traits are part of the DNA of the McCallop family, starting with Harrison McCallop, who was born a slave in Tennessee, gained his freedom, and fought as a member of the Union Army in the Civil War, and shortly thereafter, along with his wife, Nellie Jackson, moved their family to the wilder area of Shawnee, where they raised 14 children and started a farming business. And whereas the McCallops had 5 children who were unable to attend the whites-only Shawnee Mission School because there was no high school for Black students in Johnson County, Robert turned his farming truck into a bus that he used to take his and other African-American children to school. And whereas Robert McCallop began the R.L. McCallop bus service, the first service of its kind, with an eventual fleet of more than 14 buses, with many of his adult children behind the driver's seat during the 39 years it was operation. And whereas after the Brown versus Board of Education ruling in 1954, McCallop began driving buses for the Shawnee Mission School District while continuing to operate his own bus company. And whereas Robert Lee McCallop passed away in 1981, but his legacy lives on through his many ancestors who continue to make education and public service a priority through teaching, mentoring, and providing scholarships so that more generations of children can access quality education. And whereas the McCallop family history, as Jessica McCallop, R.L. McCallop's great-granddaughter put it, runs from slavery to school buses to scholarships. And the city of Shawnee is a better and more equitable place because of the McCallop family contributions. Now, therefore, I, Michelle Disler, the mayor of the city of Shawnee, Kansas, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021 as McCallop Family Day and encourage all residents to learn more about this amazing family and the legacy they carry on in the name of their ancestors. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
All of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Well, I would like to say on behalf of the family, thank you, Mayor Disler, Stephen Powell. Thank you so very much for even having the interest and wanting to shine the light on our family. We don't give for accolades. We give because it's in our heart. And that is just in the DNA as well. And so we just thank you. I heard someone say, just keep giving until they notice. And thank you for noticing.